2 years ago, hundreds of thousands of people were forced from their homes in northern Iraq by ISIL fighters. Where are they now, and can they ever return home? Hello, I'm Anand Naidu in Washington, D.C., and this is The Heat. ISIL's massacre of the Yezidi people made headlines around the world. In August of 2014, as many as 400,000 Yezidis fled when ISIL fighters captured their town in northern Iraq. Thousands took refuge on nearby Mount Sinjar, while others fled to Turkey, Greece and Europe. ISIL killed at least 5,000 Yezidi men and boys and abducted as many as 7,000 women and girls as sex slaves. UN investigators say ISIL's systematic campaign of murder, rape and enslavement amounted to genocide. CCTV's John Gilmore reports.
It's not a life. We are not living until the rest of our people are saved from Daesh.
A Yezidi teenager held captive and raped by jihadists is now talking about her 14-month ordeal and appealing for international help. ISIL, also known as Daesh, kidnapped her in 2014, along with 28 family members.
The girls were raped when we got to Mosul. They were all taken from their families and raped constantly, and then they were handed out to the emirs who were responsible for the Daesh.
Thousands of young women share a similar story, having been sold to slave markets. Young boys who could be converted to Islam were trained as fighters. Teenage boys and men were killed.
We found that a consistent pattern where men and boys over the age of 14 were separated from women. They were taken to locations where they were summarily executed.
The United Nations says ISIL wanted to wipe out the Yezidis, a Kurdish-speaking community in Iraq that practices an ancient religion. ISIL considers them devil worshippers. Kurdish Peshmerga forces discovered numerous mass grave sites across Sinjar that left no doubt about ISIL's intentions.
The Commission concludes that ISIL's abuse of Yazidi men, women and children amounts to genocide, crimes against humanity and war crimes.
The United Nations believes as many as 3,000 Yazidi women and children are still being held and abused by ISIL fighters in Syria. International aid organizations are doing all they can to help those who escaped and managed to make it to safety. John Gilmore, CCTV.
Our first guest knows firsthand the heartache of having lost loved ones in the Sinjar massacres. During the attacks, many of her extended family members were killed. 19 women and girls were kidnapped. She left Iraq as a young girl, but is helping her people as founder and executive director of the Free Yezidi Foundation. Pari Ibrahim, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Let's start in August 2014. That's when ISIL invaded the city of Sinjar in northern Iraq. It was an assault, as we've been reporting, that made headlines around the world. Many people were killed, many fled. You had your extended family there. What happened to them?
Well, more than 21 men have probably been killed and are in the massacres. More than 19 girls of my family have been taken and sold as sex slaves. These girls were brought to, two of these girls came back, and they were brought to Raqqa, and they were sold as sex slaves. They are raped and abused in the most awful way you cannot imagine. What a hell they have been through. And they came back, and we received them back with open arms, and we hope to receive all the women and girls that are still alive and in captivity. We hope that we can receive them with open arms. And
Now, you say the men were probably killed. You've never been able to find out what happened to them, what their fate was?
No, there's no connection at all. And what we have heard from eyewitnesses and girls that have returned is that the men were separated from the women and girls, and eventually they heard gunfires. And also later, the older women were separated from the young girls and young women. And we have been told that the older women are in mass graves and everything has to be still identified even after 2 years. There's no identification or anything of my family members or all the Yazidi community.
And of course, this happened multiple times across many families, and thousands of people were involved when Mount Sinjar was invaded. You were in the Netherlands at that time. When you heard of this invasion, what went through your mind?
So in the beginning, I stood up, it was around 5 in the morning, and in the beginning I was thinking like, what is going on? Why is everyone talking so loud? And yeah, what's going on? I asked my mother and my father, and they were immediately, they said ISIS entered Sinjar, and I thought, no, it can't be. No one thought that ISIS would enter Sinjar. We were all thinking that they would go towards Mosul, and but we were all wrong. And a week before that, even the Yezidis already had the feeling that something was going on, but they were reassured that nothing would happen and they would be protected by the Peshmerga. And eventually, at around 5 in the morning, they were not, and the Peshmerga withdrew. Don't know what the reason is, but the civilians were left unarmed, and so it was that the Yezidis, a genocide was committed by ISIS against the Yazidi population, and a massacre happened.
Now, at that point, you hear about this taking place in Mount Sinjar. You're in the Netherlands. At what point did you decide, I need to do something about this?
Well, at first I was trying to contact all media sources in Holland and around the world, like, what is happening? Why is no one putting this on the, why aren't the voices of the Yezidis being heard? And there's no media attention at all. So we started together with other Yezidis around the world to raise awareness, going to Brussels and demonstrate that something must be done for the Yezidis. And eventually, so I started the Free Yezidi Foundation alone, and now I have a great board, and all different organizations are helping us to help the Yazidi population, and we do a lot of advocacy work for this.
Right, now last year you went back to Sinjar with a Dutch television crew, and you filmed a documentary there. That documentary is called Slaves of ISIS. Let's watch an excerpt of young girls talking about being kidnapped by ISIS. Let's watch.
گچکل طبقی بنیبن جن امی شیر زارادنه جکچکا کازان من کی گچکا کی جنا جگ دارینن هاتن کنانف مدا هرتق چهار تاتن پنج تان بکیف خوش خورا اختارت کنو گچکت بره ماگو تا حراسکی ماگو هنی چلوگ نشما او گو خده او تا زواج و زواج مگو لیدان میلوادن گو هچی تشته پیس و واگن هونی طلبا دین ویلواکن.
When you saw these young girls, when you interviewed them, did it ever occur to you, this could have been me?
Yes, of course, because ISIS was systematically killing the Yazidis and taking the women as sex slaves. They even said it in their Dabiq number 4. They say, we wanted to eradicate the Yazidis because they are devil worshippers and non-believers. So yes, I am Yazidi. It could have been me if I lived there in Sinjar.
Why did ISIS invade that part of Iraq? Was there some kind of strategic benefit in their battle to take that? What was the reason?
So everyone is asking, why did Sinjar go to the Yazidis and why did they not go to Mosul?
Right.
We do not know what the reason is. Eventually we see that they got what they wanted. They wanted to eradicate the Yazidis, but thank to God, eventually America stood up and they started airstrikes against the ISIS. And so, together with the YPG and the PKK, they could open a corridor, and eventually all the Yazidis who were on top of the mountain could flee through the corridor to a safer place in Kurdistan.
And how long did that take? Because the invasion took place in August of 2014. So at what stage was that, did they find relief?
That was after many days. I think it was after 9 or 10 days. And then finally, but I mean, they were too late, of course. But if they did not act at that moment, much worse things could have happened, as if this is not worse. The girls are living in a hell. But I mean, like, at least now some Yazidis have been spared.
Right, in the documentary you also spoke with an elderly woman who lived on the top of Mount Sinjar. Let's take a listen to what she had to say.
رب العالمين وهنا كشتنو هنا اشتهنا بحجين هنا ناس دامرين
نقري داير
باش نقري باب خدا إيشاد الألباب منها كتقري أمزي بحج.
So you have thousands of people who abandoned their homes, fled the fighting, went onto Mount Sinjar to get refuge of some kind, like the lady who's talking there. What's happened to them? Have they been able to return to their homes?
No, until now. So Sinjar is a province.
Right.
And there is also a city called Sinjar
Right.
within the province. They have liberated some areas and also the city of Sinjar, but until now ISIS is in Sinjar. And the Yazidis cannot go back home because everything is demolished. There's nothing left to live. And even ISIS has put in landmines in houses and on the roads so that if the Yazidis would return to their homes, they would be killed anyway. So I myself think, and I'm the executive director of the foundation, I think that even after 3 years, my people cannot go back to their homes. Because until now, after 2 years, ISIS is still in Sinjar. Until now, more than 3,200 women and girls are still in captivity and not rescued. And how are these families going back? They have nothing anymore, and they have nothing in Sinjar. So we have to, as Yazidi-led organizations, try to get justice, try to rebuild the community from the ground up, and this is so difficult. And the Yazidis don't trust a lot of people anymore because even their neighbors betrayed them. Some of their neighbors, like teachers of their children, became ISIS fighters as soon as ISIS entered Sinjar. So how are you going to bring the Yazidis back if you cannot provide them with safety and a future,
right,
and hope to a good future?
As you say, it's very difficult. So in Sinjar itself, in the town or the city, ISIS fighters are there and they are able to move around freely? Is there no resistance at all?
There is now, at the moment, there is resistance, but they're not getting any further. We know that there is a plan to take over Mosul. They say that if they take over Mosul, then they can take over Sinjar. But even when taking over Mosul, we have to be careful that there are people who are innocent inside of Mosul. I'm also talking about these 3,200 women and girls and children who are inside of Mosul or, for
Right.
example, Raqqa.
Okay, I want to play you another quick clip of your documentary. This is a young Yazidi girl talking. Let's watch.
I'm همو 18 ماينة بس كتاكي مساعدة مانا كريا وكتاك مساعدة ماناكا هاتانوها كتاك نهات يا باما نقول يمي مساعدة كيش ورقن ونت كتاك نهات يا باما
Young girl there, sounding totally hopeless. Didn't get help then, didn't get help now. Do the Yazidis feel, in a sense, that the world has turned its back on them?
Well, yes, they feel this way because so many of our people have been killed and so many girls have been taken. And if you see that it has been taking 2 years and it is so difficult to rescue these girls, to liberate Sinjar, we feel left alone by the world. And I think we have all right to, because we have all these mechanisms to prevent genocide, to protect.
And this was genocide.
And
right?
this was genocide. And Even one time someone told me, and he was from the Dutch government, I heard that he had said, well, we have to eventually, if the war stops, say if it's a genocide, but what give this to me or my people? If in the end my people has been eradicated, at that time, do we have to accept that recognition of genocide will come?
That would be too late.
That is too late.
Okay, we are going to have to take a break right now.